You're listening to The Breakfast Show on Faith FM with Skafy and Lindsay and producer Tish here on Faith FM. And we are going to tell you about what is to come. So I'm going to be talking, my story that I'm covering is a new research that just came out from the United States that surveyed 717 Christian universities and found out that 1 in every 7 are actually actively encouraging and promoting abortion practices by the students.
Wow.
So that's quite a shocking news. We're going to be finding out which ones are the denominations that were leading these transgressions. I must say that I am very surprised.
Okay.
Super surprised.
Yeah.
I'm overly surprised.
Alrighty.
But that's going to be coming up later because we're also going to have an interview with Mark James. He's going to be sharing with us from Creation Ministries International about, imagine if you had a machine, Lindsay, a machine that gets all of these untangled USB cords that you have in a dark corner of your home.
I have that dark corner.
I also have that dark corner. Imagine like a machine, you just press the button and it untangles that for you and makes them nice and neat.
Yeah, okay.
Well, did you know we have these kinds of machines inside of our bodies and they're doing that all the time. So he's going to be sharing with us about the DNA untangling system that the Creator has given it to us. And I believe that you're going to take us to India today, aren't you?
We are going to India today. We've been talking about India in the prayer city, Mumbai, and that was actually very coincidental because I hadn't chosen the story yet when I picked the city.
Okay. So we're going to be looking at a story from India, a good news story about classrooms in open air. Is that right? Okay. So we have a great show lined up ahead of us today. We would love to spend this hour with you. And producer Tish is raising her hand. She's like, pick me, pick me. I believe she has something to say. Very important. Perhaps a new quiz question even.
Very important.
It is of paramount importance. I'm glad that I've been added to the conversation. Why does Solomon caution us not to boast about tomorrow?
Not to boast about tomato.
Yeah.
Tomatoes.
Tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow.
Why does Solomon caution us to not boast about tomorrow?
Okay.
If you need a clue, try looking in Proverbs 27 towards the start of the chapter. And 0491 064 669, why does Solomon caution us not to boast about tomorrow? I think I may have stumped them. Have I stumped you?
No, I'm accessing my long-term memory here.
Accessing the long-term files.
Yes.
0491 064 669. I hope I haven't stumped you too.
Ooh.
Because, look, my brain is taking me to a saying of Jesus. Probably your brain's going there as well.
Yeah.
Okay, hear about that one. Don't look at my answer.
I'll try a screen sheet.
Yeah, that's on the way to true.
Okay.
The closest to true we have so
Hold on.
far.
Let me see if I can.
So say the question one more time again, Tish, please.
I'll repeat it one more time.
One more time.
Why does Solomon caution us not to boast about tomorrow?
Oh man, I'm drawing a blank here, guys. This is a rare occasion. Mark it.
I think I
Tell the authorities.
And I just complimented my answer a little bit further.
Yep, that is pretty well the truth.
Okay.
I'll say correct.
Is it correct? Okay.
Correct.
Thanks, Tish.
Well done, Skafy.
All right, Lindsay
And
Lou.
Lindsay, I may have stumped you for now.
Okay, are we
Have
seeing
vague ideas.
a two for one today? Is that what's happening here? Oh,
Ooh.
okay.
A 2-for-1. What do you mean by
Yeah,
that?
two scores for me, one for you.
Excuse you. I beat you
When?
already today.
No.
Yes.
No. When?
I
was
had
two
such a right
correct
answer
answer.
that it was too good for even Tish to know about.
Oh, yeah. Look, you got it right, answer, but I got one too. So I think I got
And I beat
that
you on the
as
first
a
one.
tie.
Okay, I'm not going to try writing an answer for that one right now. It's time to get into our story from India today.
Okay, let's talk about India.
Okay,
What happened? What's happening there?
There is a teacher there who has won a $1 million prize for turning India's slums into hundreds of open-air classrooms. So this teacher, when she was in her 20s, so this is about 20 years ago, she was invited to help do an art class with some children in slums, and there's lots and lots of slums in India. Obviously, India is like one of the top 2 most populated countries on the planet. Between it and China, I don't know which one's ahead at any point in time, but she went to this slum. She was teaching these kids how to do some art. She's a very artistically leaning teacher.
Nice. Yeah.
And she came across this one child who had never seen a pencil before and had no idea what to do with it.
Man, that would be heartbreaking for a teacher.
And it was a pivotal moment in her life where she decided that, you know, she's going to dedicate her life to helping the children in the slums to gain an education.
Wow.
And so, over the course of the past 20 years, she has amassed a volunteer base of hundreds of volunteers. I think she started up over 600 open-air education spaces in the slums throughout India. And she uses the sides of walls of old buildings as art spaces and murals, and they're not just for artistic purposes, but they're like, she's using art to teach maths and to teach society and how to be a citizen and hygiene and all the things that they would need to learn from a very, very basic level for kids who've never been able to attend school. They don't know what a pencil is. They don't have access because of a lack of infrastructure. I was reading somewhere online recently that in certain cities in India, they're gaining hundreds of thousands of new residents each year. Like, there is just such an explosion of population in this country.
Are we moving from the country to cities?
Yes, there is that, but also just massive population growth in birth rates as well as immigrating into these cities, looking for employment or whatever. And so the slums are growing at rapid paces. And with that, there's just no way for the councils there to keep up. They can't build roads. They can't build schools. They can't build sanitation. It's just hordes of people moving into shanty towns.
Wow, what a crisis.
So
what happens? So these classes are all open air classes. So it looks like she's just like getting a place in the street and then she's like, okay, let's do it. But what does she do? Because it can get pretty hot during the day. Or what happens, for example, if it's raining, how does she cater for these factors? Do you know? Does it say?
No, that wasn't addressed in the article that I've come across here. But
sure, they will have some kind of plan B. I mean, worst case scenario, it's okay, no class today, kids, but...
Maybe. Look, but I know that they are using outdoor settings and the sides of old rundown buildings in order to use as like a blackboard, right? Basically.
Which is really cool.
Yeah.
Look, what I love about this lady's attitude is that can-do attitude.
Yeah.
So you know what? No buildings, no problems. We're going to make it work.
Exactly.
And I also love how she's, okay, whatever I'm going to teach them, I'm going to teach them through art because that's going to stick into these children's minds so much. I actually like to use that approach, of course, not with that level of dexterity, but in my children's Bible class every Saturday. So I run a little children's church, and we talk about Bible stories, but we play games, and I often try to find out some kind of craft that will tell something about that story that they had just learned. For example, we were having a class about Joseph's tunic of many colors, and we created a tunic with contact paper, contact plastic, and then we glued some
different colored paper.
Yeah, this kind of a semi-transparent,
cellophane,
colorful, kind of like cellophane paper. There's a different name to that one, not
crepe
the cellophane,
paper.
Crepe paper. And then the kids created like a little mosaic of colors, and then they could glue that to their window, and it becomes kind of like a sun.
So cool.
A sun.
Yeah, I know what you're talking
about.
Yeah.
Decoration.
Like a glazed paint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's just one recent example. But I get so excited when teachers are using their creativity to teach through crafts.
Yeah. No, that's so cool. I wanted to hit on a different point here with this story.
Okay.
However. So this story with what's her name? Rubal Nagi. That's her name. Rubal Nagi. She's this lady who has been leading in this space of creating these open air education spaces in over 100 different slums across the country, 600 different individual open air schools. This is actually helping address the challenging conditions that are shaped by poverty, which include child labor, early marriage, irregular attendance, and the lack of infrastructure, of course. And so what is happening is they're finding that there has been an over 50% dropout rate in schools, and this program that she's put together has drastically reduced that dropout rate. So
amazing.
Students are able to attend school
50%.
more consistently, which is going to be able to set them up in life to have a better education, better opportunities, maybe move overseas to a better country, or to serve their communities better with more skill and ability. And so the way I see this connecting with the gospel is that part of the Bible that tells us to uplift and to look after those who are in poverty or who are oppressed, to set them free. And that is through systemic ways as well as, just setting a slave free, but it might be also by bringing up the education levels and addressing these social issues in order to help people rise above their current station in life so they can have better access, so they can understand the gospel, so they can read the Bible for themselves. So all these amazing effects that uplifts a person's life. So, hey, look, I want to encourage anyone out there, if you have been feeling like God has placed a call on your life, or he's placed a burden on your heart to serve a certain group of people that may be underserved, I want to encourage you to just jump straight in with both feet. God will give you the resources and the abilities to walk out that calling that maybe you think is way too big for you alone. And you know what? If it feels like it's too big, then it is a calling from God. It can't be a calling from God if you think you can accomplish
solve
it yourself.
it by yourself. I love it.
No way. So I see that this is a calling from God on Rubal Nagi's life, even though she might not serve the one true God. Maybe she's a Hindu or whatever, but she is serving God by serving people and uplifting them in life. And you can do that too. And each one of us has been called to serve others, to love God, to love others. That is the culmination of the 10 Commandments, is to love God and to love other people.
Absolutely.
And so how can you do that? I want to encourage you. And hey, put in the chat, how do you think that God has called you? And I want you to take ownership of that calling.
That's
Let
right.
us know.
Tell us your burdens.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
Now we are going to review the answer to the quiz question by producer Tish.
So the question was, why does Solomon caution us not to boast about tomorrow? And the answer was, because we do not know what tomorrow will bring. And that can be found in Proverbs 27, verse 1.
That was so simple.
Yeah.
Why didn't I get that?
It was a simple one.
I was like
simple.
thinking of, our lives are like a blade of grass or a flower and it fades away
You're
and
overthinking
blows
it.
off in the breeze. And so I was just, he's very poetic like that. So that's where my brain was going. But that is something more that Jesus refers to. And then he's talking sort of about Solomon in a similar line. And I was like, no, that's not right, is it?
Yeah, I said because tomorrow we really don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
So
that's
what's the point of bragging about it?
Written in something.
Well done.
All right, thank you very much, Tish. Let's move on, Lindsay. I want to share with you this news that just came a few hours ago. Actually, it was published recently in the Christian Post website.
Yeah, tell us.
And this is about a report from Students for Life of America's Dimitri Institute for Pro-Life Advancement. So basically, it's a students that are pro-life, and they're just surveying American universities, Christian universities, and saying, hey, what are their ties with abortions? And to be honest, the results made me really sad. And look, we're not here to judge anyone. Let me put it very, very clear. God is a very graceful God, but we also have to ask some questions here. And typically Christians, and the vast majority of these universities, but typically we when it comes to these matters of abortion, we want to ask, okay, what does God think about that? And we find Bible verses like in For example, Psalm 139 that says that we are wonderfully and fearfully made, and God knitted us together in the womb of our mothers while we were still being informed. Well,
Yeah.
nobody has seen us. God is already caring for us and,
Yeah.
and building us. So, the Bible, I believe, it advocates for life being a gift from God, being something sacred, and it's something that worth defending. That being said, I do also understand that, women face some real pressures and, real fears about, what's going to happen. It's going to be a life-changing moment. And so I do acknowledge that there are some real pressures that some of them can face. But normally churches should be the first place where these, in a perfect world, whenever someone is afraid or anxious about a pregnancy that they have, I think that they just, I'm going to go to a church. And it's just like, we're going to walk alongside with you. You're not going to be in this by yourself. We're going to give all the support that perhaps you're not finding from your family, from your support group, or we'll be that for you. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. And in some universities, out of the 725 universities that have been surveyed, 114 of them, Lindsay, have failed according to the test. So they have some kind of ties to the abortion industry in the United States, particularly to Planned Parenthood.
Interesting.
Now, do you know what Planned Parenthood is?
Is it some type of, is it privatized or is it public?
So it's private, but it's a non-for-profit.
It's a non-for-profit.
Yes, but they do get
which
about
is-
$2 billion budget a year.
It's like a medical
Donations.
clinic where you can go to get an abortion.
That's right, among other things. But
Okay.
they're famous
The main
for
thing.
abortion and in promoting and marketing that
Sure.
and so on. So they found out that a number of schools they were asking, okay, what kind of ties they have, and they found out that a bunch of these Christian-based universities, they have some really strong ties with Planned Parenthood, including, for example, in their website list of mental health support, for example, which it's very common for universities to have a list of resources.
Yeah.
Planned Parenthood is one of the top links.
Okay.
So if you're
Wow.
here we go. Some universities actually advertised jobs and internships at Planned Parenthood.
Wow.
Imagine going to a Christian university and going to the board of the
Like
news.
medical universities or universities that
Universities in
offer-
general, they
Okay.
offer. It doesn't explicit, but I would not be surprised if also medical universities. But
Yeah.
it just say Christian universities
Sure.
in general. There's one Christian university, for example, that offered counseling courses, and at one of the examples of what kind of counseling the students can pursue is like abortion counseling.
Wow.
And I want to believe that they're talking about abortion counseling in terms of, hey, really counseling, because counseling is supposed to be neutral. In counseling,
Sure.
you're not supposed to tell people what to do. You're
Yeah.
supposed to help them clarify what
What
their
they-
beliefs
yeah.
are, and give them tools to solve these
Yeah.
problems. But this is something that has been flagged. Sometimes other instances they had, for example, they were sharing flyers from Planned Parenthood in class with their students, or even inviting Planned Parenthood lecturers to come to the campus to do lectures. I'm not talking about debates. I'm just talking about lectures about what kind of services that they have they are providing. So one of the things that the report points out is that when parents are putting their kids, and they're paying sometimes top dollars to help their kids to go through a higher Christian education, they're kind of expecting them to be aligned with at least some basic Christian
Beliefs.
philosophies
Yeah.
and beliefs.
Yeah.
And one of the things here that I was shocked the most was that out of all of the schools that failed according to the metrics that they have set, 37% were Methodists.
Oh, okay.
Methodist was the champion. Now,
Wow.
the thing is, the Methodist conference, the Methodist movement in the United States, they're not pro-abortion at all.
Okay. Are they explicitly anti-abortion?
So they're not. They value and uphold the sanctity of life.
Sure.
But they do understand that in some extreme cases, like the mother's life being at risk, or rape, incest, and so on,
Sure.
that that they can understand why some women may
Yeah.
make that decision. So they're not like some of the denominations that were say no abortions at any point in time.
Yeah.
Or the others that say, yeah, look, you use your free will however you want. So they're kind of like in between kind of
Like,
moderate
okay.
position.
Nuanced, but mostly pro-life.
But then their universities are some of the worst, quote unquote, transgressors, according to that survey. In that they were some of the universities that were advocating for, hey, you can go and become an intern there.
Wow. So they didn't get the memo at the uni.
They didn't get the memo, and I think that's definitely raising some eyebrows.
Yeah.
But a second, so this is 37 of the universities that failed. But then in the second place in terms of denominations, with 25% of cases, were Catholic universities.
Wow.
Now, that took me by surprise because...
Yeah, they're very pro-life from what I understand.
They're pro-life. Usually the Catholics are big champions in the pro-life cause. And yet 25% of the universities that have failed are connected with Catholic universities, with the Catholic Church. So I found it to be quite... sad and interesting. And look, I think there's I'm not one of these people you're not going to see me, for example, holding up a chart in the street saying abortion is murder and so on. I don't think that this language helps anyone, to be honest.
Sure. I
think that when people feel judged, they're going to get shut immediately.
Yeah, they're not going to be open to more conversation
Exactly. Yeah. When I engage in that conversation, I believe in the sanctity of life, and I try to engage in the conversation by sharing some stories.
Sure.
For example, I know that my wife's mom, she was pressured a lot to pursue an abortion when she fell pregnant of my wife, my now wife, of course, when she was 15 years of age. And also she was not married.
Yeah.
And then, there's a lot of pressure for her to get an abortion. She decided not to. And look at my life now.
Yeah, you have a beautiful, amazing, epic wife.
I have like the best woman on earth is on my side.
Yeah.
So imagine this, like a lot of people, we don't know this, but maybe your best friend would not be here if their parents, were pressured into committing a non-medically necessary, non-sort of emergential kind of abortion.
Yeah, I've heard stories of people whose mother has tried to abort them multiple times and failed each time, and then they've been born and they've been raised with this knowledge that, mum didn't want me. I shouldn't be here. Like, that has such a thing on their psyche. Like, yeah. That's
right. And not to mention, this is one thing. Some of the women that I've spoken to, and I have had the honor of meeting many women that went through a process of abortion or considering abortion and so on. It's kind of, it's very common thing. And I've seen all kinds of different stories, but one theme that emerged to me that I remember really impacting me is that they said, Skafy, one of the things that they don't tell you when they're encouraging you to get an abortion is that you ended up going to have like lifelong traumas about it. Yeah. Because, and this more than one lady says it, and apparently there's really a lot of ladies that do report that. They say that every time that you see a child that is at the age of supposed to be their child, they feel this deep sadness and regret. And we're not talking about guilt or the kind of guilt that is like, people shaming them. People accepted them. People in their lives loved them, supported them throughout this process. But it says that they have to live with this with these scars now because in more than one occasion, what has been reported to me is that they were afraid for what would be the financial repercussions of that and whatnot. And then later on in life, they realize, what? All these financial problems, they'll be fine. It's all solvable. Yeah. It's never the end of the world. No. I was, the risk of, living in the streets and so on, it was never really there. So by now I could have had pretty much the same life. My parents could have helped, or my church community could have helped.
Made it work.
So it could made it work. God would have blessed me, and now I have to live with that. And just another testimony that I can share from a very close friend of mine is that she was both unfortunately raped and incestuous at the same time, and she chose to keep the baby. And now I've met the young man. He's now a young adult, and look, he's one of the finest human beings I have ever known. And she was pressured left, right, and center to get an abortion. She thought about it, but she decided, what? I'm going to trust in the Lord with this one. I'm going to trust in the Lord, and this is going to be a blessing. And lo and behold, this is a fine human being. When a person that anybody would like to have around, that wouldn't be here,
like an asset
if she
to
didn't
society.
Trust in God. So I think that the one element that is missing is, hey, why not trusting in God with this one? Let's trust in God with this one. God will provide. Life is a blessing. Children are a blessing. Do not let anyone convince you otherwise.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
And we now are going to have an interview with Mark James, a speaker at Creation Ministries International. And he's going to be talking to us about a process that I must confess I knew very little about. It is how does our body untangles our DNA, and actually it's more complicated than you think and more complex than you think.
Okay.
So Mark is going to be sharing with us this process of these biological machines that are living inside of us. Mark, good morning to you. It's great to have you with us on the show.
Good morning, yes, and it's great to be on the show with you. And I notice you didn't try to say the name of this machine, the topoisomerase.
That's right. I saw the word and I said, I'm going to trip big time.
Topoisomerase?
Yes, topoisomerase, yes. So tell us a little bit about it. How does it work?
Okay. I suppose what you have to realize here is that DNA is very long, very thin molecule. And it's two strands that are wound together almost like, it's called a double helix. And when a cell makes a copy of itself, which happens a lot, obviously, the body is continually making new cells. When the cell makes a copy of itself, it has to make a copy of the DNA. And because the DNA is these two strands, what happens is that the strands are separated. And there's a machine called helicase which separates the strands, but it does this by rotating very, very rapidly. It rotates it up to sort of 7,000 revolutions per minute.
Wow.
And as it rotates, it starts to actually cause tension in the DNA strand. And that tension, and it's like, I'm a terrible fisherman. And when I go fishing, quite often the lines get tangled. And when the lines get tangled, you realize that fishing has to stop for a while you detangle the lines. And often there's a temptation, if the tangles are really bad, to actually cut the line in places so that you can actually separate the pieces that are together. The problem with that, obviously, is that you then end up with lots of short pieces of fishing line, which isn't a lot of use. But DNA is like that. As it's spinning round, it starts to get tangled. And there's a machine in our cells called topoisomerase. And this machine is specifically designed to untangle the DNA. And it's quite a remarkable machine. I did send a video. Did you see the video, Joseph?
I have seen. So Mark sent me a video. I was like, my mouth was just open throughout. I already sent that video to some of my friends that need to see this, Mark. And by the way, if anybody wants to see the video of this machine in action, you can text me here to 0491 064 669 with hashtag DNA. Hashtag DNA, and I'll send you the link. But Mark, let me tell you what I was so impressed with this movie, with this video that you sent me. In the beginning, it starts with this analogy of this box full of USB cables that are all tangled up. And I think that we all have a drawer somewhere in our homes with the remnants of these leftover cables. I certainly for one have them. I do not know why I'm accumulating them because I'm never going to use them. I have just to get rid of them. But I tried to untangle them many times, and it is a big work. But what surprised me, Mark, is that in this DNA replicating process, it's kind of like getting these two cords of DNA and you're like spinning them around on each other. And so you're creating these, not only they're entangled, but they're also under an immense tension.
Absolutely. And that tension, if that tension builds up, then the replicating process would stop. It just wouldn't work. And that's why the topoisomerase it's absolutely essential to life. And the way this machine works is quite incredible. Basically, there are three, they call them gates. So there's a top gate, a middle gate, and a bottom gate. And between the gates, there are two open spaces. And the machine basically starts off with the top gate open. And when there's a tangle in the DNA, the tangle is actually guided through the top gate into the top space. And then the top gate closes. And then one of the tangled strands of DNA actually attaches to the middle gate. And the middle gate opens. And as the middle gate opens, the DNA strand is broken. So that it's like cutting the fishing line, basically. The DNA strand is broken. And then the second strand of DNA, or the first strand of DNA, then drops down through the middle gate, and then the middle gate closes again and reconnects the DNA.
Oh, like glues it back together?
It puts it back together again.
There you go.
So that's the one thing you can't do with your fishing line.
Yes.
Well, you possibly can, but this happens automatically within the cell. And then the bottom gate opens, so one strand drops out through the bottom, and then the top gate opens, and the other strand goes out through the top. And basically the tangle is untangled.
Yeah.
And
That's so
the
cool.
remarkable... Oh, it is. It's a fascinating process to see. And the incredible thing is that, first of all, that this machine is so amazing. But secondly, we now are able to see into the cell and see these machines in operation at almost the atomic level. Some of the science that's going on today is just quite amazing.
How are you able to see? Are there microscopes that are that powerful now, or how
There
are you able to see?
I believe there are microscopes that are that powerful nowadays.
Wow, that's so
it's
cool.
phenomenal. It really is.
Plus with modeling as well. But James, I want to ask you this question here. Okay, so I'm fascinated because you're telling me that this operation is actually happening at 7,000 rotations per minute. So that's more than a Lamborghini or a Ferrari at full throttle.
Wow.
Every single second multiplied across trillion of cells in your body?
Absolutely. Yep.
Wow.
And replication of your cells, and so new cells would not happen without this this replication process.
And this is happening while you're sleeping, or you're just chilling, or you're running, like at all times this is going on.
It is happening in your body right now, many millions and millions of times.
That's crazy.
Wow.
The last point to this whole thing is the topoisomerase is absolutely essential. I mean, if topoisomerase didn't exist, then DNA would be functionally useless. But the coding to make the topoisomerase is actually on the DNA.
Okay.
So you end up with this chicken and egg situation.
Yeah.
Got a catch-22 here.
Oh, absolutely. You cannot have a topoisomerase without actually replicating the DNA, but you need to have the DNA coding to make the topoisomerase.
So
I tell you,
could not have evolved, is what I'm hearing.
You know what? The only way it could possibly have happened by chance is if a topoisomerase and the coding to make the topoisomerase both occurred at exactly the same instant in exactly the same location. And it's ridiculous to even imagine that could possibly have happened.
Yeah.
It points towards our Creator God, and a Creator God that is just designing things that are so far beyond anything we can even comprehend.
Because look, this is just one of the processes that is going on, because there's like hundreds, if not thousands of processes that need to happen at the exact order, the exact same time, so that we can even function and breathe. Yeah. And if one of these things are not working properly, boom, we just drop dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what we're finding nowadays too is that these machines are quite complex machines. And when these machines are being made, there is actually scaffolding programmed into the DNA.
Yes.
So scaffolding is created, which then helps to manufacture these machines. So not only the machines coded in the DNA, but the scaffolding's coding in the DNA as well.
Like scaffolding on a high-rise building.
Well, that sort of thing, yes.
Wow.
That sort of thing.
That's crazy. I love it.
It is quite mind-boggling. So you're saying me that, look, because of that, this is, how do you call this when what is the name? Because this is something that happens across the board, isn't it? Where that you can't really explain through, for example, because if an evolutionist would say, oh, yeah, look, this is natural selection. At some point, some cell just formed that by randomly, and it turns out it was really, really good for their life and to the perpetuation of life. So it just stayed there through their descendants. But what you're telling me is that this is very, very unlikely to have happened.
It's impossible. It really is.
Impossible, yeah.
If every single molecular vibration in the whole universe for the whole of the supposed 13.8 billion years of the universe, which I don't believe, by the way, the universe is only 6,000 years old. But I mean, if every single the chances of this coming together by chance, it's zero. It really is zero.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And Mark, so okay, so this is absolutely fascinating. Is there anything else that you'd like to highlight from that structure? Otherwise, I would like to also to ask you, because a lot of people will say, hey, wait a minute, like 6,000 years, like what are the evidences that we can point to towards a young universe as well? Because I know that even among creationists, sometimes there is a debate about that.
Okay. I would recommend people go to our website, creation.com. There is an article there. All they have to do is search creation.com, age, and there's an article there, 101 evidences for a young age of the Earth and the universe.
Okay.
101 evidences.
101.
Yep, and what people don't realize is that of all the methods that scientists use to determine age, over 90% of them point to a young age of the Earth and the universe.
Oh, really?
You don't get told that. So of these evidences that point to an old age for the Earth and the universe, they're a small proportion of the methods that are used to determine age. But they're the ones that we get told about at school and at university, because they're the ones that people want us to believe. They want us to believe that the Earth and the universe are billions of years old.
Can you give me one example of these discrepancies of methods, or one method that would point out towards a young creation, young universe, or a young Earth?
There's one that only I've only realized, or it's only come to my attention recently, and that is there's a metal called nickel. You've probably heard of it.
Yeah.
Nickel is, it's everywhere on the Earth. And with erosion, nickel gets washed into our oceans. And we can estimate how much nickel is being washed into our oceans every year just by natural processes. So natural erosion, we can estimate how much nickel is going into our oceans. And we can also estimate how much nickel is coming out of the oceans, because there are things that form on the sea floor that the metals get attached to, basically. Okay. So we know how much is going in, we know how much is coming out, and based on the current rate of increase of nickel in the oceans would be toxic to life in less than 200,000 years. At the current rates. Now, these oceans are supposed to be billions of years old. And that nickel will have been eroding into the oceans for all those billions of years. Why is there life still in our oceans if at the current rates in 200,000 years? Now, I'm not saying that the Earth is 200,000 years old. I'm not saying anything like that at all. But we know at the current rate of increase that life would not exist in our oceans in less than 200,000 years. See, something like that. Oh, yeah, something like that. You sort of look at it and you think, okay, well, if that's the case, surely the oceans cannot be billions of years old. In fact, they can't be more than thousands of years old.
But is that if someone says, but have we factored in by our human sort of influence into that? Is there any kind of human influence into the deposition of nickel, because of nickel being used in industries and being dumped in the oceans? Could it be that the current rate is not the same as the historic rates, or that has already been accounted for?
It has been accounted for. Basically, as I said, it's the
natural
nickel going in by natural processes.
Wow, that is fascinating. Look, this is the first time that I'm hearing about these nickel rates. I think it's absolutely fascinating. Mark, we are having to wrap up the interview here, but can you please give us again, how can we find more articles? Actually, I was needing help from Creation Ministries International on the weekend. I was talking to a friend of mine that brought up the evidence of the laryngeal nerve on giraffes. It's a famous Richard Dawkins video, and I found some great fascinating resources at creation.com. So can you tell us a little bit more how to find creation trustworthy information online?
Okay. The ministry I work for, we call ourselves an information ministry. We're apologetics, definitely, but we're an information ministry. We employ more PhD scientists than any Christian ministry around the world, as far as we know anyway. And these scientists are constantly looking at all this new scientific information that's coming through and examining the scientific facts from biblical perspective. And then we have articles that go up on our website. We have which is creation.com. So you go to creation.com. If somebody's asked you a question or you have a question for yourself, go to creation.com, use the search function, type your question in there, and all these are, and I'm sure this is what you did on the weekend
Yes,
shows.
this is exactly what I've done.
You type the question in there, all these articles will come up with information. You can read them for yourself. You can copy them. You can link them to so your friends can go and have a read of them as well. We also have Creation Magazine, which is an amazing magazine. It comes out every 3 months, and Creation Magazine basically keeps people up to date with all the new information that's coming through, and they're easy to read articles. They're great color photographs, just an amazing magazine. So that's another area that people can get involved.
So
Plus
there's the website, the magazine.
Yep. And we also have Infobytes, which is an email alert service, which comes out every couple of weeks with new scientific information. Again, interpreted from a biblical perspective. And people can sign up for Infobytes on our website as well.
Thank you very much, Mark. This is absolutely fascinating, great information. So now you know where to find creation.com, and you find all of these amazing resources.
Thanks for being a part of the Faith FM family. Join our community on Facebook or get in touch at 1-800-FAITH-FM.